I have over 400 completed anime on MAL, my preferred and only site I use for tracking and logging anime and manga. As you may or may not know, I started watching anime seriously around 2016 when my friends told me I was in the wrong. So, to spite them, I took them up on their offer to give Naruto a chance, believing that I would hate it, further proving my point that anime is dumb and for kitty baby boo-boo diaper humans who run through the school halls in a very specific, aerodynamic-centric manner. I've been hooked ever since. I've also developed a very peculiar way of rating media over the years. It is known as the top 0 rating system. Basically, media that I deem to be the top 0 are media that I believe to be the very best version. So good that it cannot be in regular talks and or list with other media, even if the other media have some similarities. If you'd like to learn more about it, please watch my video from last year. One Piece is the only 10 out of 10 on MyMal, which means if I give something a 9, it either moved me to tears or made me giggle, smile, and or kick my feet nearly every episode. My average score is a 7.39, which isn't bad considering only one of 400 has ever been rated a 10. Personally, if I give something a 7, I enjoyed it. It wouldn't be among the first go-to recommendations, but it was a good watch. Rarely do I ever rate something below a 7, and rarely do I ever write a review. There are 3 outlier anime on my list. One Piece, a 10 out of 10 masterpiece that every author should learn from, and Hot Poo Poo Caca Dog Water, ReZero, and Excel World, both of which are 1 out of 10 abysmal stains on the industry as a whole, both of which are the 2 reviews I've ever written for my log. In March of 2017, I wrote that Excel World was the worst anime I'd ever seen in my short life. Very quick and concise, very direct in my reasoning there. And on October 29th, 2021, I wrote that I would rather redacted my own throat, replace my eyeballs with jelly beans, eat nothing but coleslaw for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and dessert, lose half of my organs, and live to be 500 before I rate ReZero anything higher than a 1. Hello, team. I hope this video finds you well. My name is Bartholomew. It's kind of like Bartholomew, but with a Z. Today, I'll be rewatching ReZero. If the video does well, maybe I do the same for Excel World at a later date. For now, I'd like to provide some context before we get into things. Currently, ReZero Season 1 sits among the highest rated anime on MAL, a site known for overly hypercritical media snobs. So that already has to mean something. To maintain above an 8 out of 10 score on MAL is rare. To me, it tells me that majority of the people who watch the show didn't just think it was okay. Collectively, we think it is 2 points away from a perfect score. Of course, looking at the spread, we can fine-tune our impressions. 19.4% of voters rated it a 10 out of 10. 26.9% of voters thought it was a 9 out of 10. And 29.1% of voters gave it an 8 out of 10. I'm among the 0.4% of voters who felt that it should not exist. I'll be honest. When I scored ReZero all those years ago, I did so with hate in my heart and murder on my mind. I was hot off of Snafu, the top 0 rom-com of our generation, and I was hurt by the MC's decision. A decision that I would not have made in any universe. A decision that I could not for the life of me understand the motive behind. All it took was for one episode to not go the way that I wanted it to go, and all of a sudden, ploop! There goes your rating, which in hindsight sounds dumb, but I know at the time I felt betrayed, led astray, mysterious and misunderstood. I felt like I'd wasted all that time I invested into the show only to be let down in the final moments, which was unusual of me. Normally, I'm a huge advocate for letting the story move you even if the emotion is a negative one. For example, spoilers by the way, the MC from School Days is a shitty person. I hate that guy. I didn't agree with anything that he ever did except go to school. And yet, I like School Days because it was able to draw that emotion out of me. But as a bonus, in the end, I'm rewarded for how I felt about the MC. So then I thought, well, maybe I hate that my emotions mean nothing to ReZero. But that can't be true because, spoilers, I hate Domestic Girlfriend's MC more. And while I did give it a lower rating than School Days because I wasn't rewarded, I only gave it a 6. I don't think that's that bad. Recently, I was discussing Severance with coworkers. During the conversation, I had to defend a character for a choice that they made, a choice that put the other characters at risk and from the outside looking in was a bad choice. I advocated that while the choice was bad and selfish of the character, leniency should be given based on what we, the audience, know relative to what the specific character knows. Without giving away too much, because I refuse to spoil Severance, please go watch it, the character's actions match their circumstances and knowledge. Meaning, as a viewer, we have to accept it as a choice that the character would make, not one that the character should make. I was so hellbent on this concept that I used it to voice my frustration with ReZero to someone who thought ReZero was the second coming of Jesus Christ. Because I believe that although I know my rating was as subjective as possible, and yes, I was upset, I could not objectively defend Subaru's actions with an S. Motive behind the action was unclear to me. It didn't make sense not only from my perspective, but from his. When I explained this to them, they said, "You just don't get it." Me? I don't get it? Me who has forgiven nearly every villain to ever exist? Me? I'm usually right. However, there are rare times in which I am wrong. I can admit that. But it is rare. So I'm going to challenge my beliefs by revisiting ReZero to see if I didn't get it. Spoilers ahead. I would tell you to go watch it and come back to this video, but I'm writing this script before rewatching it. Therefore, I currently still believe it's garbage, so do what you want. First off, animation, chef's kiss. Sound, I like it. He's in a new world and can't read the language. Haha, funny. Bathroom mishap, but what's cooler is the scene before that when he asks the vendor what fruit he was selling. The vendor says ringa, a purposeful mispronunciation of the Japanese word for apple, which is ringo. Further conceptualizing the idea that we are not in Kansas anymore. I like little things like this. I don't care if it's standard or corny. What's important is the author is communicating to us information that we need to know as it's being exposed to the character. This allows us as the audience to draw conclusions alongside our subject without the need for a narrator to tell us what to think. In my opinion, this is strong foundation for brilliant storytelling, even if it's meant to be funny. Speaking of funny, the scene where he's complaining about his starting gear and the camera cuts to his bag of snacks as the 7-Eleven Konbini door chime plays, like, hilarious. Not like laugh out loud, lose my mind hilarious, but like enough to blow air out of my nose hilarious. I really like the part where they jump bro in the alley, not because I want to see him hurt, but I think the theme was well executed. He really believes that this new world will give him everything, just as all other fantasy tropes have given to other summoned heroes. He's so convinced that he is capable, he kind of just goes for it. And it works, until bro ups Blade, and it was no longer a game. Subaru quivers and apologizes once he realizes the stakes, but mid-apology he gets kicked in the face so damn hard. To be honest, I giggled and curled my toes over the humorous situation before I heard him scream in agony. Not like a hee hee ha ha scream, real guttural pain. It happens so quick, it's easy to miss. It's funny to us because we're like, of course that happened, but to Subaru, it has to be the most terrifying way to be woken up. So far, this anime is pretty good. It has a good premise, good world building, a good hook, and funny moments balanced with very serious undertones. It's a shame I hate it. Subaru is a likable MC. From episode 1, I can gather that he will use his noggin when necessary. He has killer determination and a merciful heart. He's a good kid. Mad City. To see someone with as good a heart as he die a slow death is cruel. Even though we know he'll be back, this show makes a point to ensure we understand that it isn't pretty for him when he does die. It hurts him physically in the moment and mentally after. To top it off, when he restarts, he carries the burden of knowing a possible future, which is super dark when you think about it. Finding a balance between goofing off and really getting into it is difficult. Compliments to the chef, I enjoyed episode 1. That will not be happening for each and every episode. We're going to do progress updates in chunks every 5 episodes. So let's get into the rest of it. We're currently 20% of the way through our ReZero rewatch. Highlight episodes include episode 2, where I wrote, Subaru spamming a bunch of death-related quotes whenever someone repeats an action or statement that led to their death is kind of funny. It almost makes you forget that he's genuinely terrified of that happening. In episode 4, where I wrote, is Subaru the most likable MC ever? This guy is funny, smart, humble, respectful, and hardworking, I can't help but like the guy. That's what I wrote. Before going any further, I'd like to say a few words. I am enjoying this show. There is a lot to love. There's mystery, drama, suspense, humor, and quirky characters. But this is probably how I felt on my first watch. And since I've erased all of the show except for those couple frames from the episode, this is kind of like a first watch for me. This show has had me, a grown man, giggling and guffawing at its gags and sympathizing with Subaru's experiences for better or worse. I would say empathizing, but I've never died. It's a cool concept and I'm rooting for Subaru. We are currently 40% of the way through. I don't have much to say about episodes 6 through 10 without spoiling what happens, and at this point, I can say that the show is good enough that I don't want to do that. So I'll be quite vague now, and very detailed later, thereby giving you a chance to stop watching the video if you care. I'd like to highlight episode 8, where I wrote, I wasn't crying, there was something in my eye. This show not only makes me laugh, but it makes me cry, which currently makes it a 9 out of 9 anime by my standards. But I'm still not convinced. Oh boy. Okay, here's what I wrote as I was watching episode 18, aka the episode. Run away with me? Kill yourself. You have to choose? How about you choose the correct path for once in your lives? And last but not least, I am willing to compromise on how mad I am by agreeing that they rejected one another. However, Rim's rejection is because Subaru is not asking her to run away in good faith. He's attempting to give up on life and settle for an easy route. Rim can tell that the Subaru that has reached this conclusion is not the same Subaru that she fell in love with. The problem is that the Subaru that she fell in love with loves Emilia, which has reopened my wounds. And it hurts me to even say this, but Rim is repaying the favor, even though it hurts her. When Rim had lost herself, Subaru was there to help her restart from zero. To help Subaru go back to being that hero, she and we have to accept that Subaru from zero means Subaru from episode 1. The same Subaru that I told myself, regardless of his decisions, I would respect as long as they fell in line with his character. So I guess you can see where this is going. Fine. ReZero is more than meets the eye. We follow the story of a man who can see every great quality in others around him and aspire to become someone who can be seen as an equal. By being placed into a world with little to no combat power, when things lead to needing to be strong physically or magically, Subaru is unable to live up to those demands, forcing him to lean on others a lot, which is initially seen as a bad thing to Subaru. Even though Subaru may have hated himself or felt that his words were empty, he genuinely is a man of his word, through and through. But he is a flawed man. His greatest flaw being that he is unable to see the good in himself. And to see someone with the resolve to repeatedly face death for others, a rock, if you will, crumble to dust and become a shell of his former self is heartbreaking. The time that we spend with that version of Subaru makes our reunion all the more special after the storm has passed. Welcome back, GOAT. 9 out of 9. There are 3 scenes of vital importance which I failed to recognize in 2019. Subaru saving Rim, allowing her to restart. The episode where Rim saves Subaru, allowing him to restart, and the final scene of the season where Subaru saves Emilia, allowing her to restart, which is very poetic and beautiful. Does that mean that I'll change my rating on MyAnimeList? No! Are you crazy? I just had to watch someone I thought was my GOAT fall from grace for 6 episodes straight, and it was literally his fault. Initially, I thought that I was hung up on the episode alone, but that's not true. I did not enjoy the ride. Me personally, I don't mind a flawed MC, and I understand that it takes time to make me not only understand, but feel the severity of the plot points. But I hated having to watch someone so useless be saved time and time again by the actual GOAT. And in the end, my GOAT gets her GOAT back. But at what cost? It isn't fair. It's unforgivable. Objectively, in a vacuum, as a story, accepting every bit of information as the author intended, it's a masterpiece. But art is subjective, and my list is my list. Hot poo-poo garbage. There is nothing to get. This shit sucks. I love it. 未完成のパズルどうしてだろう 何かが足りない行き違いの運命離れてゆくとも知りながらまた歩く I stay alive 今は一人闇をさらぬため So stay がの切なさがPlease subscribe to the Patreon.